In the Hebrew worldview, the concept of absolute ownership is an illusion. The foundational belief is that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. This shifts the human role from an owner to a steward or manager. When you view yourself as an owner, every market dip or financial loss feels like a personal amputation. This leads to emotional decision-making, panic selling, and a paralyzing fear of risk. However, adopting a stewardship mindset changes the psychology of the game. If you are a manager, your job is to handle the resources entrusted to you with maximum efficiency and rationality. You become a fiduciary for your own life. This detachment allows you to analyze losses objectively, as a business cost rather than a personal tragedy. Because you recognize that you are temporarily managing these assets, you focus on the quality of your decisions rather than obsessing over the fluctuating balance. This mindset creates a calm, professional distance that is essential for long-term capital preservation and growth. The ancient practice of giving away 10% tithing is often misunderstood as a religious tax. In reality, it is a high-level training in abundance logic. Most people operate from a scarcity mindset, believing they never have enough to spare. By forcing a 10% overflow even when resources are tight, you are performing a psychological reset. You are training your brain to see that your survival is not dependent on every last cent, but on your ability to manage the 90% that remains. This practice creates two critical safety nets. First, it builds a psychological safety net. If you are capable of giving, you are proving to yourself that you are in surplus, which kills the desperation that leads to bad investments. Second, it builds a social safety net. In the ancient Hebrew community, this 10% supported the vulnerable. In a modern context, this translates to building a network of goodwill and social capital. When you are a person known for contributing to others, you are never truly alone in a crisis. The 10% you give away acts as an insurance policy for your reputation and your sanity, ensuring that your wealth serves a purpose larger than yourself. In the book of Ecclesiastes 11:2, there is a famous piece of investment advice. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. In an ancient world of unpredictable droughts, shipwrecks, and wars, relying on a single source of income was considered a gamble, not a strategy. This is the origin of radical diversification. The Ecclesiastes strategy is built on the reality of force majeure, unpredictable events that no amount of intelligence can prevent. By spreading resources across 7 or 8 different streams, you ensure that no single point of failure can wipe you out. If one stream dries up due to a market shift, the other 7 continue to provide liquidity. This isn't just about spreading money, it's about spreading risk across different industries, locations, and asset classes. In a modern context, it means building a portfolio where the components are not correlated, creating a resilient web that can catch you regardless of which way the wind blows. The book of Proverbs 11:1 states that, "The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him." While this sounds like a moral command, it actually describes the physics of sustainable profit. In any system, a dishonest scale creates a friction point. When you gain profit through deception or unfair advantage, you are essentially stealing value from the system. According to the laws of probability and system theory, dishonest gain eventually reverts to zero. Why? Because it destroys the trust necessary for future transactions and invites external corrective forces, be it legal trouble, a damaged reputation, or retaliatory competition. Honest profit, however, has a self-protecting quality. When a transaction is fair, both parties leave with more value than they started with, which encourages the system to repeat the process. Honest scales create a positive feedback loop of recurring business and referrals. In the long run, the person with the accurate weights doesn't just make money, they build a fortress of stability that protects their wealth from the volatility of a world built on fleeting vapors. In an agricultural society, everyone understands that you cannot plant a seed on Monday and eat the fruit on Tuesday. There is a mandatory waiting period dictated by the laws of nature. The Hebrew wisdom tradition leans heavily into this harvest rhythm, teaching that wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will make it grow. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 11. In today's fast money era, the greatest competitive advantage is the ability to wait. Most people are looking for a shortcut or a moonshot, which often leads to high-risk gambling disguised as investing. Respecting the natural cycle of capital accumulation, where you plant, save, protect, invest, and wait, compound, creates a massive barrier to entry for others. While the rest of the market is chasing trends and burning out through impatience, the person who masters the harvest rhythm builds a wealth structure that is deep-rooted and sustainable. Patience isn't just a virtue here. It is a mechanical requirement for compounding to work its magic. Ancient Hebrew law treated debt with extreme caution, viewing it as a form of voluntary bondage. The warning in Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 is blunt: the borrower is slave to the lender. To maintain your freedom of self, you must treat debt as a dangerous boundary that should rarely be crossed. Unlike modern financial systems that encourage maximum leverage, this ancient perspective advocates for the safety of the margin. Maintaining a safety net means living significantly below your means to avoid the necessity of borrowing. When you are over-leveraged, you lose the ability to make rational decisions because your creditors effectively own your time and your choices. In a volatile market, debt is the primary cause of total loss. It turns a temporary dip into a permanent wipeout. By setting a strict boundary against unnecessary debt, you protect your core assets. You remain the master of your own vineyard, giving you the power to stay calm when others are forced into desperate liquidations. Staying debt-free or low debt is the ultimate protective shield for your financial future. The greatest tragedy in wealth management is the three-generation curse, where the first generation builds, the second preserves, and the third squanders. Hebrew wisdom combats this by focusing not on the inheritance of cash, but on the inheritance of values. In Proverbs chapter 13 verse 22, it says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children," implying a vision that spans at least 3 generations. This is generational compounding, the idea that wisdom, when passed down correctly, is a more powerful asset than gold. The most critical asset to transfer is the stewardship mindset we discussed in the first section. If a child inherits money without the mindset of a manager, the money will disappear. However, if they inherit the how-to of wealth, the discipline of tithing, the strategy of diverse streams, and the ethics of honest scales, they can rebuild even if the cash is lost. Building a multi-generational wealth culture requires intentionality, teaching the next generation the why behind every financial decision. By passing down a code of conduct rather than just a bank balance, you create a legacy that is self-sustaining. True wealth is not measured by the size of the estate left behind, but by the strength of the character of those who step into it.